Motivational Mondays is the perfect way to set the tone for your week. Everyone can use motivation. Mondays are amazing, rich with opportunities, full of potential, and now motivational. Your week begins here. Good Monday morning. My name is Genevieve Jones-Wright, and I am the founder and lead empower mentor of MIA, Motivation.In.Action. And I am so excited to be with you on this Monday morning, sharing our very first story for our Motivational Mondays series. This morning, we are going to hear the story of Debra Ricks, a cancer fighter and warrior mom. Hers is a story about resilience, the ability to heal and grow from life's toughest moments. So, without further ado, here is the wonderful woman who fights every single day and who's here to share her story with you so that you can jumpstart your week with some inspiration. Also, this woman just happens to be my aunt. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Auntie Debra.
Thank you for having me to be your first guest for your Motivational Monday. I am excited to be here to motivate your audience for the week.
You're a grandmother who takes a very active role in your grandchildren's lives. You were a single parent, and you went back to school to further and continue your education. I think you're a wonderful role model. And now you are a cancer fighter. That's been added to your story. And one thing that we talk about at MIA is the importance of sharing our stories. And we recognize that everyone has a story. So before we get into the cancer fighter part of your story, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and your background?
My story began 64 years ago. I was born number 6 of 10 children to Felton and Dorothy Jones. They were great parents. They raised us with morals and values. I was number 6, so I saw a lot of things being number 6.
Being number 6, you're sort of in the middle, but not quite, and also considered a part of the younger generation. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do.
Now, you mentioned that you were 64. Can you please tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up in San Diego during the time that you grew up?
Yeah, well, me and my sisters, we talk about this all the time, that back when we grew up in San Diego, it was different. Like I said, even though we came from a family of 10, my parents made sure we had a normal life. We did everything. We went to the movies. We got on the bus, went downtown. We walked to the zoo. We enjoyed life in San Diego.
Hearing you talk about how you grew up gives me the feeling that during your childhood, you all shared a great sense of community.
Yes, we took care of everybody, and everybody looked out for us. We looked out for each other. We would take the kids to the neighborhood house back in the day. That's where you went and did arts and crafts and went on a lot of field trips, or we went to the Boys and Girls Club and did the same thing. And we made sure everybody was fine.
And those are the values that were instilled in you by your parents, my grandparents, Felton and Dorothy Jones, and they really are a very big part of why you're here this morning to share your story, because you want to help others. So can you tell us more about the journey to becoming a cancer fighter?
It began 2 years in September. I was like tired all the time, and I was diagnosed with pneumonia. And so I went to the hospital. They gave me antibiotics. So I said, okay, I'm gonna be fine. But in the process, I was still weak and I was not getting better. Months later, I woke up one morning and I had a real bad pain on my left side. My pneumonia must be back, but it was like a worse pain than before. So I made an appointment. I went to the doctor and I reminded her that I had pneumonia back in September. So she was like, okay, well, I'm gonna send you to go get a x-ray. She said, but in the meantime, you need to go, do things like get a colonoscopy, a mammogram, and things like that. At the same time, I was taking a shower and I felt a lump. And I said, well, maybe I'm just imagining this because she told me to go get a mammogram. In the meantime, I asked her, well, what happened with the diagnosis for the x-ray? And she said, well, actually, you didn't have pneumonia. Your lung had collapsed. So I went and made my appointment for my mammogram. She called me and said that they think they see something, but they weren't sure what they saw. And now I needed to get a biopsy. So I went back and I got the biopsy and she asked me to come in. So I went in and she said that they found that I had breast cancer. They think it might have metastasized to your bone, but they're not sure. You need to get a PET scan, and that it would be $1,500 cash for a PET scan. And I'm like panicking, like I don't have $1,500 to get this PET scan because I don't know what's going on with my body. They're telling me I might have cancer in my bones, and I'm not understanding why can't I get in to find out what's going on.
I just have to stop you right there if I can, because I know your story and I can't fully describe the emotions that I'm feeling hearing you recount these details. And so I can only imagine how people who are at home listening in on our conversation are feeling. You went to the doctor because you thought that your pneumonia had come back, only to find that your lung had actually collapsed. And then you were diagnosed with breast cancer that the doctor believed had metastasized. On top of that, you had to try to figure out a way to get a PET scan. I mean, this is just gut-wrenching. It's almost unbelievable. And because I know your story, I know that these emotions don't just end here. So please continue telling your story.
So weeks went by and we're trying to figure this out. And I was just getting weaker and weaker. Now this March, April went by. So I looked at my husband one day and I said, look, I'm not getting better. I said, you're gonna have to take me to the ER. So he took me to the ER Friday before Mother's Day. I explained to the ER doctor that I had breast cancer and they think it metastasized to my bone. So they admitted me. It was a good thing they did. That night they had to give me 3 units of blood. So the next morning, the oncologist came in. He looked at me, he said, I think I know what you have. He said, but I have to do a bone marrow biopsy. He said, I'll be back later on this evening. So he came back later on that evening, did the bone marrow biopsy. Now, mind you, this is Saturday, right before Mother's Day. So he comes back on Mother's Day. He says, you have multiple myeloma. And I'm like, what, where did this come from? Like, how did I end up with this type of cancer? Because I'm not understanding it. And he looked at me, he said, not only is it a rare cancer, the one that you have is the rarest of the rare because it usually stays in the bone marrow. He said, yours got into your bloodstream and people don't usually do that well when it gets in the bloodstream. But he looks at me and he says, there's no cure, but we can put you in remission, but you have to do everything we tell you to do.
I think it's important for people to know that what you just described happened over a few months. This wasn't just going from one doctor to the next in a succession of days. You and your husband both lost your health insurance coverage, and this is really where your fight begins. You had to fight to see a doctor, then you learned that you not only had to fight multiple myeloma, which is already a rare form of cancer, but the rarest form, all with no health insurance. And then you had to undergo chemo, which is not comfortable to say the least. What made you keep fighting? What made you keep going?
All I was thinking about was being here for my family, especially my kids and my grandkids, because I want to be here long enough to watch them get married, go to college, or even, if possible, the NBA, or the NFL, whatever they choose to do as a career.
I just love that you mentioned your grandchildren because, of course, your grandson, Boogie Ellis, is one of the biggest basketball stars in the collegiate arena today. I know that he was a big source of motivation for you throughout your journey, but can you just tell us how he motivated you?
Oh, Lord. I think back to even when he was a baby, every time we went to the store, we had to buy him a ball. Ball. He knew that he had to work hard at whatever it was that he wanted to achieve in life. This kid was in elementary school. He went and asked this guy to train him. And the guy said, "What? Like, you're only in 6th grade." He said, "But I need you to train me." And the guy told him, "Okay, I'm gonna take you and you can play with the adults." He said, "If you can hang with the adults, then I'll train you." He hung with the adults and the guy started training him. That's what motivated me. That's what keeps me going, is him and his efforts to be the best that he can be. So I want to make sure that I'm the best Nana I can be to him and my other grandkids, and be here for them to share my life and my experiences with them, as well as them sharing their life and experiences with me.
Your grandchildren being a source of motivation is just beautiful. And there is another beautiful part to your story. Can you please talk about the symbol of the butterfly and its significance for you?
Well, a butterfly comes from a caterpillar. And when you have a bone marrow transplant, they tell you you're born again, which I truly understand that concept of why they use that you're born again. So I had my bone marrow transplant on my birthday. So I was born twice on November the 4th. So when you have a bone marrow transplant, you have to stay in the hospital for at least 3 weeks after, because they have to keep an eye on you, make sure everything is going smooth. During those 3 weeks, that's when I thought I was going to die. That was the worst thing I ever went through in my life. I would never wish that on anyone. But if you have to go through it to survive, yes. But so getting back to the caterpillar, when you first see it, it's not pretty, but it goes through a metamorphosis to become a butterfly. So through the process, it turns to mush. And if the caterpillar emerges from the cocoon before the process is complete, the butterfly doesn't make it, it dies. So when I was going through that, I knew that I was turned to mush. I had to go through the metamorphosis. I had to go through the process of being reborn and being a whole person all over again. If you see a caterpillar and it's struggling and you try to help it get through the cocoon, if you do something wrong and try to help that caterpillar, and if you help make it emerge too soon, then it dies. So when you go through that process, you have to go through the process. There's no shortcut. There's no getting around it. You just have to go through that process to get to where you need to be for the rest of your life, a different person. So that is why my symbol is the butterfly.
What a beautiful and a powerful symbol. And when I hear you speak about the symbolism of the butterfly, I'm reminded of a beautiful struggle. And you talked about going through the process. And we know that even what you just shared with us, it hasn't always been easy. But this is why your story is one of resilience and healing and growing past the tough times in life. So with that being said, what would you leave with the folks who are listening in on our conversation today as they embark on the start of their week and as they set the tone for the upcoming week?
Oh, look, it's so much to tell, and it's so much to say that I really can't really um, get you. I don't know if I can get you to understand that when you go through something like that, you look at life totally different. Like you have flashbacks of what you did as a kid, what you did as an adult, what you should have did, what you didn't do, what you could be doing. So um, I'm at a point where I thought like, hey, I'm a grandmother. I'm 60. At that time, I was 63. I said, okay, I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna just hang with my grandkids. But when life happens and 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 you turn into a different person, then you think differently. Now I want to help people get through their struggles and some of their um, I can't find the right word, uh, things that they might be going through. That's why I was excited that you asked me to be on your first guest for your Motivational Monday, because all I kept thinking about is I need to be somewhere to speak to some people to motivate them, because when we're living life, we don't understand a lot of things that go on in the background or that going on with people. You look at somebody and you just judge them and think, well, they should be doing this way, or they should be doing that way. You don't know what a person is going through. I explained to this girl that I had cancer, and I even showed her, the picture before and after, and my hair was growing back. And so one day I saw her, she said, your hair is growing back. And she looked at me, she said, but you need some earrings. And I looked at her, I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, she don't know what I went through. I'm looking at her like, that's not important to me. It's the earrings as much as I'm still here. I'm still here, and I can tell my story of what I went through, and I'm still here. And I thank God every day for being here.
Absolutely. And I thank God for you being here to be able to share your powerful story of resilience and how you have the ability to learn and grow through some of your toughest life moments. And that in and of itself is very inspiring. And the fact that you are still going through this because your journey isn't over and you are fighting every single day because of the rare cancer that you have, and you're doing this with a smile. So I just want to thank you for being such a warrior mom and for being a cancer fighter every single day.
Thank you for having me. Love you.
Oh, love you too, Auntie. Thank you so much for being here. What a wonderful conversation about the power of resilience told through the story of Debra Jean Ricks. Join us for our next Motivational Mondays as we kick off February, which is, of course, Black History Month, with Philip A. Brown, the author of Olivia Jones, as we discuss the importance of passing the torch. Please tune in.